The future of America is dependent upon the intellect and the caliber of the succeeding generations, and unfounded educational mandates for state and local governments are detrimental to our primary education institutions being enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives, United States of America is Congress assembled, that all articles of No Child Left Behind Act, with the exclusion of the reauthorization of the Primary and Secondary Education Act, be appealed immediately. Civilizations rise and fall on the strength of their education. Rome was built not by the sword, but by the engineer. France was made great, not by her musketeers, but by her philosophers. And America, likewise, has made great by the succeeding generations of our educators. Public education itself was transformed in 1965 with the passage of the Primary and Secondary Education Act, which provided federal funds to the improvement of schools across America to reaffirm that the very foundation that holds our union together is education. But today, a cancer has twisted itself into this historic legacy. This malignant tumor, this No Child Left Behind Act, is poisoning the educational system of America, state by state, city by city, school by school. This act cuts off funds to schools that need our help, that need the help the most. It requires teachers to jump through bureaucratic red tape, and fundamentally, it's degrading the educational quality of our public schools. No Child Left Behind mandates that students from grades 3 to 10 be tested once a year in reading and mathematics. All are expected to pass the state-administered tests and to make yearly progress towards 100% pass rate by the year 2014. Schools that fail to meet these goals for 2 years are threatened with the loss of their Title I funds, the money given to school districts to assist impoverished students. It's a carrot and stick method that is harming the very students we should be helping the most, who should be getting the most attention. These tests are not standards throughout the country. They vary from state to state on the basis of each state's standards. The states set the bar for this allegedly national standard. And to avoid losing money, these states set the bar so low, and they jump through every loophole they can find. For example, when Illinois lowered the passing grade on their standard mathematics test, the pass rate jumped from 54% to 78%. Not because the students learned anything new, but because the state made it easier to pass. And likewise, in Mississippi, which has the highest passing rate in the country for their own state tests, but when their same students take the federal test, they have the lowest passing rate. These states are cheating their own children out of an education. Not only does the federal government think it wise to take away money from poor and underperforming destitute children, it also believes that they shouldn't fund their own program. No Child Left Behind represents one of the largest unfunded federal mandates in American history. The government promised the states money to pay for this, $65.5 billion, and the states haven't received a cent. This has forced states to cough capital needed to execute this federal mandate. Virginia has spent $20 million per year to execute these tests, and Connecticut likewise spends $10 million. No Child Left Behind also requires teachers to be fully credentialed in their areas of teaching. But we're not just talking about having a science credential to teach science. We're talking about having to have multiple credentials, including training on special needs students for all teachers. And to legally teach a biotechnology course in which students may gain community college credits, a teacher must have both a science credential, a vocational credential, and 10 years experience in the field. Yet all this extra education for teachers doesn't mean they're statistically more qualified teachers and better performing students. We all know that the best teachers are the ones that ignite passion in their students, and a piece of paper doesn't do that. All these erroneous requirements are just driving potential teachers away from this field that is already underpaying as it is. This act has also forced schools to teach only two subjects only, math and English, at the expense of other subjects. On average, throughout the nation, time spent on science, social science, art, and music have been cut by half an hour per each subject. So students can add up the founding fathers, but they can't tell us what they created, and they can read the Constitution but not understand it. This extra focus on the bare minimum hasn't even helped. It's hurt. The pass rates throughout the nation have dropped. 4/5 of all states have lower pass rates today than they did 2 years ago. For example, in California, the pass rate has gone from 48% to 33%. Alaska has gone from 41 to 34. Oregon, 37 to 22. Wyoming, and Wyoming is well, that's an amazing example, 87 to 22. And this is the tip of the iceberg. But most of all, how can politicians legislate? How can politicians in Washington legislate what teachers should or should not teach when they haven't been sent into a classroom since their last election campaign? For most times, we are one nation with one goal and one solution. But there are times where we are 50 states and we require 50 different solutions. This is not a subject where the federal government can and says what is right and what is wrong. This is up to the states, and which is why we should eliminate this bill. Because people in Washington can't make education work. What makes education work has to come from here, has to come from the parents, has to come from the school districts, has to come from ourselves, not from Washington. Pass this bill and save our schools.
What's no child left behind? What's no child left behind?
Yes.
Second? All in favor?
Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes. You get a minute.
Okay. So I was just wondering, why is it that you say the plan gives an incentive to pass students, right? And secondly, you say that pass rates are falling. Why is that?
Well, it's not a very good incentive. It's a carrot and stick method. If you don't meet our goal, we're going to hit you with it. They're going to take away your Title I funding, which they badly need as it is. Public schools are already deteriorating. If there was other incentives, and it doesn't work. It's a failed incentive. There are probably other ones out there on this cutting room floor, but this one hasn't worked. The National Education Association knows it, and every public school district knows it. If you talk to your local teachers, they all, almost universally to a number, lowers the bill, lowers the act.
Are there any more questions? Yes.
Is there anything in No Child Left Behind worth saving?
Actually, it's a reauthorization of the Secondary Education Act, which is not going to be affected by this bill. This would be, this bill, once currently being debated, is taking out the cancerous elements of No Child Left Behind and leaving what Lyndon Baines Johnson and Congress in the 60s put into effect, federal money to help schools, not hurt them.
I'm sorry, can you just repeat what Primary and Secondary Education Act does?
It gives money to schools and impoverished children. There's 9 or 13 titles of it. I can't tell you what all of it does, but it gives it's like a general federal block grant to states and to schools, giving the money to fund disability access to disability students, poor and impoverished students, low and reduced cost lunches, things of that nature. I can't exactly tell you everything, but it worked pretty well the first 30 years.
All right, that's time.